The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the massive crystalline chamber that had witnessed 1,000 years of interstellar diplomacy. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated sectors, their varied forms creating a mosaic of alien biology under the pulsing blue light of the chamber's energy core. The air hummed with tension as translators worked overtime to convert the cacophony of languages, clicks, chirps, and telepathic emanations into comprehensible communication. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood alone in the center of the chamber, her simple black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by the other delegates. Her hands remained steady at her sides despite the weight of nearly 100 alien gazes fixed upon her. The humans had requested this emergency session 3 days ago, but now it seemed the council had other plans. "The motion before us today," announced Councillor Vexthera, his serpentine form coiled around the speaker's podium, "concerns the immediate expulsion of the human species from the Galactic Council and the subsequent quarantine of their home system." His words triggered a wave of chittering, growling, and harmonic tones from the assembled delegates. Sarah's jaw tightened. This wasn't what they had come here to discuss. The humans had called this session to address the growing tensions over their rapid expansion and technological development, hoping for diplomatic solutions. Instead, they were being ambushed. On what grounds? Sarah's voice carried clearly through the chamber, amplified by the translation matrix. "Humanity has adhered to every treaty, every protocol, every agreement we've signed since joining this council 12 years ago." The Kralith delegate, a massive insectoid creature with iridescent chitin, rose from his position. "Your species expands too quickly," he buzzed through his translator. "In merely 12 rotations, you have established colonies on 43 worlds. The Kralith required 2 centuries to achieve such spread. And your military development concerns us greatly," added the ethereal Zephyrian representative, her gaseous form shimmering with agitation. "Your quantum torpedo technology represents a significant shift in galactic power balance." Sarah spread her hands in a gesture of openness. "All of our military technologies have been shared with the Council's Defense Committee for review. We've hidden nothing. Our expansion follows established colonization protocols, and every world we've settled was either uninhabited or purchased through proper channels." But she could see the decision had already been made. The vote counters were already tallying responses, their bioluminescent displays showing an overwhelming majority in favor of expulsion. Species after species that had welcomed humanity just over a decade ago now turned their backs on Earth's children. "The Altrurian collective finds human behavior unsettling," declared the Altrurian speaker, a crystalline being whose thoughts echoed in harmonious tones. "Your species shows insufficient reverence for established order. You question traditions that have maintained galactic peace for millennia. Since when is asking questions a crime?" Sarah shot back, her diplomatic composure finally cracking. "We've contributed to this council. Our medical advances have extended lifespans for dozens of species. Our agricultural techniques have ended famines on 7 worlds. Our defensive technologies have protected Council shipping from pirate raids. And therein lies the problem," hissed Councillor Vexthera. "Your rapid advancement suggests either hidden knowledge or dangerous ambition. The Council cannot risk either possibility." The final vote came swiftly. 44 species voted for expulsion, with only the dolphins of Kepler 442b and the tree shepherds of New Gaia voting against. The humans' own vote, of course, didn't count in matters concerning their own membership. "The decision is final," Vexthera announced with what might have been satisfaction in his serpentine features. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. All human diplomatic missions are to be withdrawn immediately. The Sol system and all human colonies are declared off-limits to Council species. Any human vessel found beyond their designated quarantine zone will be treated as hostile." Sarah stood in stunned silence for a moment, processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. 12 years of careful diplomacy, of building relationships and trust, dissolved in a single vote. She looked around the chamber one final time, memorizing the faces of those who had just declared her entire species unwelcome in the galaxy. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly, but her words carried to every corner of the chamber. "Humanity didn't join this council to be your servants or to follow blindly in your footsteps. We joined because we believed in the ideals you claimed to represent.
cooperation, mutual respect, peaceful coexistence. She paused, her voice growing stronger. Today, you've shown that those ideals are hollow words. But, don't worry, counselors. You won't have to deal with troublesome human questions anymore. She turned and walked toward the chamber's exit, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. At the threshold, she stopped and looked back one final time. "Give us 50 years, she said, her voice carrying a promise that sent chills through several representatives. "And you'll understand exactly what you've just unleashed." The doors sealed behind her with a resonant hum that seemed to linger in the chamber long after her departure. 3 months later, Admiral Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Defiant, watching Earth grow smaller in the main viewscreen. The emergency evacuation of human diplomatic personnel from Council space had been completed ahead of schedule, but the mood aboard the ships of the Exodus fleet remained grim. "Final count, Admiral," reported his communications officer. 47 diplomatic missions evacuated, along with 14,000 civilian personnel and their families. We're also carrying approximately 800 non-human refugees who requested asylum rather than remain under Council authority. Rivera nodded grimly. The non-human refugees were an unexpected development, mostly members of younger species who had looked to humanity as an example of rapid progress. Their governments might have voted for expulsion, but many of their citizens disagreed. "Any word from the advance scouts?" Rivera asked. Scout ship Pathfinder reports successful establishment of the staging base in the Kepler 296 system. Captain Morrison confirms the system is rich in resources and strategically positioned outside Council space. The automated mining platforms are already operational. For the past 12 years, humanity had played by the Council's rules, accepting limitations on their expansion and military development in exchange for membership. Those limitations were now void. The quantum torpedoes that had so concerned the Council were just the beginning. Human scientists and engineers, freed from Council oversight, had begun developing technologies that would have been banned under Galactic law. "Status of the Prometheus project?" Rivera inquired. His tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park, consulted her holographic display. Dr. Chen reports the first prototype should be ready for testing within 6 months. The new drive system shows potential for speeds that exceed anything in the Council fleet by a factor of 12. Rivera allowed himself a slight smile. Sarah Chen's sister had been leading the theoretical physics division at Luna University when the expulsion order came through. Like many human scientists, she had immediately thrown herself into projects that would ensure humanity's survival in a suddenly hostile galaxy. And Project Hermes? "Quantum communication networks are already being deployed to our colonies," Park reported. "Real-time communication across interstellar distances will give us a massive advantage in coordination and response times." The Admiral walked to the forward viewport, gazing out at the stars that had suddenly become humanity's refuge rather than their playground. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council continued its ancient deliberations, probably already forgetting about the troublesome humans they had expelled. They would remember soon enough. Commander Park signaled the fleet. "Set course for Kepler 296. It's time to begin building something the galaxy has never seen before." The human ships turned away from the galactic core, their engines leaving trails of exotic particles that would fade long before any Council patrol found them. Behind them, they left a millennium of accumulated galactic wisdom and diplomatic tradition. Ahead of them lay the unknown, where humanity would either forge a new destiny or die trying. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Council's territory forever, none of them looked back. There was no point in regret. The Galactic Council had made its choice, and now humanity would make theirs. The galaxy would never be the same. The first phase of humanity's exile had begun, but even in those early days, perceptive observers might have noticed something troubling in the determination of the departing humans. They weren't fleeing in defeat. They were advancing toward opportunity. 25 years had passed since the Great Expulsion, and the Kepler 296 system bore little resemblance to the empty star system the human fleet had first discovered. Where once there had been only barren planets and asteroid fields, now sprawled the beating heart of something unprecedented in galactic history.
Captain Elena Vasquez guided her reconnaissance ship Shadowhawk through the outer perimeter of the system, marveling at the transformation even though she had watched much of it happen. Massive orbital installations ringed every planet and moon, their sleek designs incorporating technologies that would have seemed like magic to the humans who had first fled Council space. Automated factories worked around the clock, turning raw asteroids into everything from starship hulls to atmospheric processors. "Control, this is Shadow 7 requesting clearance to dock," Vasquez spoke into her comms system. "Shadow 7, you are cleared for Bay 94 on Prometheus Station." "Welcome home, Captain." As her ship approached the colossal space station that served as both military headquarters and seat of government for the growing human commonwealth, Vasquez reflected on how much had changed. The station itself was a testament to human ingenuity unleashed from Council restrictions. Its hull incorporated adaptive metals that could reshape themselves for optimal efficiency, while its interior spaces seemed to bend and flow according to some impossible geometry that made the structure far larger on the inside than its external dimensions suggested. After docking, Vasquez made her way through corridors filled with humans and aliens working side by side. The Commonwealth had become a beacon for species that chafed under the Council's rigid hierarchies. Brilliant Eltrurian crystals grew integrated into the ship's walls, their mathematical perfection contributing to the vessel's computational power. Nimble Quillan engineers worked alongside human technicians, their forearms making them invaluable for complex repair work. Even a few young Kralith had found their way to Commonwealth space, drawn by opportunities for advancement that their own species' caste system denied them. The briefing room where Vasquez reported contained representatives of 17 different species, but humans remained in clear leadership positions. Admiral Rivera, now gray-haired but still sharp-eyed, stood before a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. "Captain Vasquez," Rivera acknowledged as she entered. "Your timing is perfect. We've just received some interesting intelligence from our deep cover assets in Council space." The hologram shifted to show a detailed map of Council territory. Red markers indicated recent conflicts, while a yellow zone showed areas of political instability. There were far more of both than Vasquez remembered from her last briefing. "The hegemony war is escalating," Rivera continued. "The Vorthan hegemony has just annexed 3 more Council member worlds, claiming they were failing to maintain adequate defense standards. The Council's response has been limited to strongly worded diplomatic protests." Dr. Sarah Chen, now Director of Commonwealth Intelligence, stepped forward. Her hair had gone silver over the years, but her eyes remained as sharp as ever. "Our agents report that 17 species have formally requested military assistance from the Council in the past year. All 17 requests were denied due to budgetary constraints and strategic prioritization." Commander Park, now wearing the insignia of a full admiral, activated another display. "Meanwhile, piracy in the outer sectors has increased by 300%. The Council Navy is spread too thin to maintain effective patrols, and their technology is falling behind the pirates' stolen equipment." Vasquez studied the displays with growing amazement. "It's falling apart. Faster than we initially projected," Rivera confirmed. The Council's 1,000-year peace was built on the assumption that all member species would remain roughly equal in technological and military capability. They never developed effective mechanisms for dealing with rapid changes or external threats. "Which brings us to why you're here, Captain," Dr. Chen interjected. "How many Council worlds have made unofficial contact with Commonwealth representatives?" Vasquez consulted her mission report. 12 in the past 6 months, including 3 founding species of the Council. They're not ready to officially break away, but they want to know what alternatives exist." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. When humanity had been expelled, many had assumed they would either die out in the galactic wilderness or eventually beg for readmission. None of the Council species had anticipated that humans would not only survive but thrive. The Commonwealth now controls 237 star systems, Admiral Park reported. "Our territory spans 3 galactic sectors, with more colonies being established every month. Our population has tripled since the expulsion, thanks both to natural growth and immigration from Council space." "And, militarily?" Rivera asked. "Our fleet now numbers over 8,000 vessels, ranging from scout ships to the new Leviathan-class dreadnoughts. Our smallest frigates are more heavily armed and better shielded than most Council battleships.
The quantum drive gives us a mobility advantage that makes traditional fleet tactics obsolete.
Rivera nodded with satisfaction.
Technology?
Dr. Chen smiled grimly. We've developed practical applications for 11 theoretical technologies that the Council deemed too dangerous or potentially destabilizing. Our medical advances have eliminated most diseases and extended human lifespans to over 2 centuries.
Our manufacturing capabilities exceed pre-expulsion levels by a factor of 40. And our artificial intelligence systems.
She paused dramatically.
Let's just say we've solved some very interesting problems.
Vasquez felt a chill at that last statement. She had heard rumors about Project Oracle, the Commonwealth's most classified research initiative. Supposedly, they had developed AI systems that could process and analyze information at speeds that bordered on precognition. Combined with the quantum communication network that now linked every Commonwealth world, it gave human commanders an almost supernatural ability to anticipate and counter enemy movements.
So what's our next move? Vasquez asked.
Rivera exchanged glances with the other senior officers.
That depends on the Council.
Our current policy has been defensive expansion, building our strength while avoiding direct confrontation. But intelligence suggests they may force our hand.
How so?
Dr. Chen activated a new display showing ship movements in the border regions between Council and Commonwealth space.
Council species are fleeing their own territory in increasing numbers.
The Galactic Council has declared these migrations unauthorized displacement of strategic populations and authorized military intervention to return refugees to their home worlds.
They're going to attack refugee convoys?
Worse, Admiral Park interjected. They've issued an ultimatum demanding that the Commonwealth cease accepting refugees and return all non-human citizens to Council custody within 6 months.
Vasquez stared at the display in disbelief. They want us to hand over our allies? Our friends? People who chose to join us?
Apparently, the Council has decided that the Commonwealth represents an existential threat to galactic stability, Rivera said dryly. They seem to believe that if they eliminate us as an alternative to Council membership, the refugee crisis will resolve itself.
What's our response going to be?
Rivera's expression hardened.
We've spent 25 years building something better than what they offered us.
We've created a society where species advance based on merit rather than politics, where innovation is encouraged rather than restricted, where people choose their own destinies rather than accept inherited limitations.
He gestured to the assembled officers, representing multiple species working together as equals. Every person in this room chose to be here. They chose to believe in something better than the Council's decaying bureaucracy. And now the Council wants us to betray that trust?
The Admiral stood straighter, his voice carrying the authority of command.
Signal all Commonwealth fleets. Implement Protocol 7.
If the Council wants a fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. As the meeting broke up and officers hurried to their duty stations, Vasquez remained behind for a moment, studying the tactical displays. The numbers were sobering. The Council still commanded thousands of worlds and millions of ships.
Their combined population numbered in the trillions.
By comparison, the Commonwealth was tiny. But, as she thought about the technologies they had developed, the allies they had gained, and the determination she saw in every Commonwealth citizen, Vasquez began to smile.
The Council had created a monster when they expelled humanity. They just didn't know it yet.
The second phase of humanity's journey was about to end. The third phase would determine whether the galaxy would embrace change or be consumed by it. The Battle of Proxima Threshold would be remembered as the moment the galactic order changed forever. Admiral Elena Vasquez, now commanding the Commonwealth's Northern Fleet, stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable as it dropped out of quantum drive at the edge of the Proxima system. Before them stretched the largest concentration of military might the galaxy had seen in over a millennium. The Galactic Council had assembled its Grand Fleet for this confrontation, pulling ships from every corner of their territory. Over 15,000 vessels filled the space around Proxima's star, their varied designs representing the accumulated military traditions of 47 species. At the center of the formation sat the Eternal Harmony, the Council's flagship, a crystalline behemoth that had served as the symbol of galactic unity for 800 years.
Impressive, commented Commander Torres, Vasquez's tactical officer. They brought everything they had.
Everything they could spare, Vasquez corrected, studying the formation through her ship's advanced sensors.
Intelligence reports suggest they've left their home systems dangerously undermanned to assemble this force.
The Commonwealth fleet that emerged behind the Indomitable was smaller by traditional standards.
Only 3,000 ships faced the Council's massive armada.
But, these ships represented 30 years of uninhibited human innovation, incorporating technologies that made them far more dangerous than their numbers suggested.
Admiral, her communications officer announced, were receiving a transmission from the Council flagship. On screen,
the familiar serpentine form of Counselor Vexthera appeared on the main viewer, flanked by representatives of the other founding species. Age had not been kind to him, and his once vibrant scales now showed the dull patina of centuries. Behind him, Vasquez could see the elaborate ceremonial chamber where the Council conducted its most important business. Admiral Vasquez, Vexthera began, his translator giving his words the same imperious tone she remembered from 30 years ago.
I trust you understand the futility of your position. You are outnumbered 5-1 by the combined might of galactic civilization. Surrender now, and the Council may show mercy to your followers.
Vasquez smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression.
Counselor Vexthera. How nice to see you again.
I believe we last spoke when your council voted to expel my species from galactic society. An action that has been fully vindicated by subsequent events, the counselor replied coldly. Your Commonwealth has become exactly the destabilizing force we feared. Your influence has corrupted dozens of species, encouraging rebellion against established order.
Funny thing about established order, Vasquez replied.
It only works if it actually serves the people it claims to protect. From what I've seen, your 1,000-year peace has become a 1,000-year stagnation.
Enough.
Vexthera's composure cracked slightly. You will surrender your illegal government, return all non-human citizens to their proper authorities, and submit to council justice. These terms are non-negotiable.
You're absolutely right, Vasquez agreed cheerfully. They are non-negotiable.
Which is why I reject them entirely.
She gestured to her communications officer, who cut the transmission.
Turning to her crew, she saw determination reflected in faces representing 12 different species, all united by choice rather than compulsion.
All ships, this is Admiral Vasquez. The Council has made their position clear. They believe might makes right, that numbers determine justice.
Today, we're going to teach them about the difference between quantity and quality.
Execute Pattern Omega.
The Commonwealth fleet suddenly scattered, their ships moving with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic.
Which, in a sense, it was.
The quantum communication network that linked every Commonwealth vessel allowed for instantaneous coordination on a scale that the Council's traditional command structure couldn't match. The first indication that something was wrong came when Council sensors began registering impossible readings. The scattering Commonwealth ships seemed to be multiplying, their quantum drives leaving energy signatures that confused targeting systems across the Grand Fleet.
Multiple contacts, reported the tactical officer aboard the Eternal Harmony.
Council sensors are tracking over 20,000 Commonwealth vessels.
Counselor Vexthera stared at his displays in confusion. That's impossible.
Intelligence confirmed they have fewer than 4,000 ships total. His tactical coordinator, a crystalline Altrurian whose mathematical mind processed combat data with ruthless efficiency, studied the readings carefully. The energy signatures suggest advanced holographic projection combined with quantum entanglement effects. They are creating false targets indistinguishable from real vessels. Before Vexthera could respond, the Commonwealth fleet struck. Ships that had seemed to be retreating suddenly turned and accelerated to velocities that shouldn't have been possible, their quantum drives allowing them to achieve near-instantaneous acceleration changes that would have pulverized conventional crews. The first Council ships to be hit simply vanished.
The new human weapons didn't destroy their targets in spectacular explosions.
Instead, they seemed to unmake them, reducing matter to its component atoms in a process that left no debris and no survivors.
Quantum disruptors, Admiral Park's voice came through the communication link from her position commanding the Southern Fleet. 30 years of research into the fundamental forces of matter.
The Council banned this research because they thought it was too dangerous. The Grand Fleet tried to respond with traditional tactics, forming defensive lines and concentrating firepower. But the Commonwealth ships moved like ghosts, appearing to attack from one direction only to reveal themselves as holograms while the real assault came from somewhere entirely different. Their quantum communication allowed them to coordinate maneuvers with a precision that made them seem like a single organism with thousands of bodies. Worse for the Council, their own diverse command structure worked against them. Orders had to be translated between species, transmitted through standard communication channels, and interpreted by commanders whose cultural backgrounds led them to very different tactical conclusions. The delay between decision and execution that had never mattered in previous conflicts became a fatal weakness. Admiral Vasquez, came a transmission from the Commonwealth flagship Prometheus, where Admiral Rivera coordinated the overall battle plan. We're receiving surrender requests from 16 Council task forces. They're requesting permission to withdraw. Granted, Vasquez replied immediately. Any ship that powers down weapons and disengages may leave unmolested. We're here to prove a point, not commit genocide. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 4 hours. When the surviving Council ships finally withdrew, over 8,000 vessels of the Grand Fleet had been destroyed or captured. The Commonwealth had lost exactly 17 ships, most of them to accidents rather than enemy fire. Councillor Vexthera, his flagship damaged but still functional, requested a final communication as his fleet prepared to retreat. "This isn't over," he transmitted, his voice carrying a mixture of rage and fear. "The Council has survived for 1,000 years. We will not be destroyed by upstart humans and their collaborators." "You're right," Vasquez replied calmly. "This isn't over. But not for the reasons you think." She activated a galaxy-wide broadcast, her transmission reaching every inhabited world through a network of quantum relays that the Commonwealth had been secretly deploying for years. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. "Today you witnessed the end of an era. For too long, you have been told that progress is dangerous, that change threatens stability, that questioning authority leads to chaos." The transmission showed scenes from Commonwealth worlds, where humans and aliens worked side by side in gleaming cities that seemed to grow from the landscape itself. Children of a dozen species played together in schools that taught both practical skills and theoretical knowledge. Scientists and engineers collaborated on projects that the Council had declared impossible. The Commonwealth offers a different path. We offer advancement based on merit, not birth. Innovation instead of stagnation. Choice instead of compulsion. Hope instead of fear. She paused, letting her words sink in across the galaxy. "To any world that wishes to join us, you are welcome. To any being who dreams of something better, we will provide transport and sanctuary. The age of the Galactic Council's monopoly on civilization is over. The age of choice begins now." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, over 200 Council member worlds had declared their intention to secede and join the Commonwealth. Refugee fleets launched from dozens of systems as entire populations voted with their feet. The 1,000-year-old Galactic Council began to fracture along lines that had been invisible just days before. 6 months later, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood once again in a great chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy. But this chamber was different from the Council's ancient crystalline hall. Built on the Commonwealth world of New Geneva, it incorporated architectural elements from every member species, creating a space that celebrated diversity rather than hiding it. The Commonwealth Assembly now represented over 400 star systems and 63 species. The old Galactic Council still existed, but it controlled fewer than half its original worlds and had been reduced to little more than a mutual defense pact among the more conservative species. "The motion before us today," Sarah announced from the speaker's podium, "concerns the formal establishment of diplomatic relations with the remaining Council worlds. The proposal includes offers of technological and medical assistance, subject to their acceptance of basic civil rights protocols." The vote was unanimous in favor. As the session concluded and representatives began filing out, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 30 years ago, humanity had been cast out for being too ambitious, too questioning, too unwilling to accept limitations. Today, they led a galactic civilization that had achieved more progress in 3 decades than the Council had managed in a millennium.
The irony was not lost on her.
The Galactic Council had expelled humanity to preserve their idea of order. Instead, they had unleashed the chaos of hope, and hope had proven far more contagious than fear. Outside the assembly building, the city of New Geneva stretched toward the horizon, its towers reaching up toward stars that no longer seemed distant or forbidding.
Somewhere among those stars, the remnants of the old order continued their ancient deliberations, clinging to traditions that had outlived their usefulness.
But the galaxy had moved on without them. Humanity had been cast out, and, in response, they had built something better. The future belonged to those bold enough to claim it.